What to do, my lord? This is here, everybody. Hope you all are well. We're gonna expand this thing here. All right. This is a 50-minute documentary that was done in 2004. The murder of Emmett. Murder of Emmett.
Tell you what happened to Emmett Till.
Right, it ain't good volume.
He was 14 years old when he was kidnapped, tortured, and killed. The two men who were acquitted of this murder were Roy Bryant and his half-brother, J.W. Myers. The failure to punish anyone for the crime made headlines across the country and around the world, exposing the racial hatred and unequal justice for blacks that was pervasive in the segregated South, where laws dictated where blacks could eat and drink and where they could sleep. But Emmett Till wasn't from the South. He was from Chicago and just visiting relatives in Mississippi in August of 1955 when his nightmare began. Emmett's 16-year-old cousin traveled to Mississippi with him. The family was reluctant to let Emmett take the trip, afraid his free-spirited nature could get him into trouble in the Deep South. That cousin who traveled with him is Wheeler Parker Jr., now 65 years old.
He was kind of attractive. He loved pranks, he loved fun, he loved jokes. He just was there and kind of everything. He was kind of a natural born leader.
Why would that be the problem?
Like Mississippi, where would it be from? That'd be a problem because Mississippi, what he thought was fun or a joke wasn't funny to him.
So before you went down, did anybody say, look, here are the do's and the don'ts about going to Mississippi? You do this, you don't do that.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. You're always prepared to go to Mississippi to stay alive. Because, once you got to Mississippi, you had no protection under the law. You couldn't call anyone to help. Once you were there, you got in trouble.
For Emmett Till, the trouble started here, at Bryant's Meat Market and Grocery Store in Money, Mississippi. Back then, most of the customers to this store were black workers from nearby cotton plantations. The store was owned by a white couple, Roy Bryant, and his 21-year-old wife, Carolyn, who was behind the counter the afternoon that Emmett Till and his cousin came in to buy candy. As he was leaving the store, Emmett Till whistled at Carolyn Bryant, and she went to get a gun. Simeon Wright, Emmett Till's cousin, who lived in Mississippi, was 12 years old on that day when they went to Bryant's grocery store. Today, at 62, he says the sound of Emmett whistling is as vivid to him now as it was 50 years ago.
When he whistled, we ran, we jumped in the car, and died.
Just because he whistled?
Oh, yeah. throw a rock and break a window, you don't hang around and see what's going to happen. And you knew that in Mississippi, at that time, 1955, that was something that was something.
Emmett Till and his cousins raced home that day and hoped nothing would come of what Emmett had done. But 3 days later, Carol and Brian's husband Roy and his half-brother J.W. Milo went looking for Emmett Till in the middle of the night and found him and his cousin at the home of Reverend Rose Wright, Emmett's late great-uncle, who recounted what happened next.
In the morning, about 2:30, I heard a voice at the door, and I asked who was it. And it said, "This is Mr. Bright. I want to talk with you and the boy." And when I opened the door, there was a man standing with a pistol in one hand and flashlight in the other.
Emmett Till and Simeon Wright, Mose Wright's son, were asleep together in one room, and Wheeler Parker was in another room, awakened by the sound of angry voices.
She was just a good lady because in my heart, I'm ready to die. And at 16, I wasn't ready to die. And I could just feel like the whole bed was shaking. And then these guys come with a tip in one hand, a flashlight in the other. And for some reason, I closed my eyes and I opened them. They just passed right on by me into the next room.
I woke up and I looked. I saw two men standing over the bed. One had a gun, which was J.W. Milo. I saw Roy Bryant. They ordered me to lay back down, go back to sleep, and they ordered Emmett to get up and put his clothes on. And my mother was pleading and begging with him not to take him. My dad was pleading with him. And my mother then at that time offered to give them money to leave Emmett alone. And Roy Bryant kind of hesitated, but J.W. Milo, he didn't hesitate at all. He didn't even think about taking money. He came there to take Emmett, and that's what he proceeded to do.
Before taking Emmett Till out of the house, Simeon Wright says J.W. Milo questioned his father, Reverend Mose Wright.
Before they left my room, he turned and asked my daddy how old was. My daddy told him that he was 64. And J.W. Milo said, "You tell anybody about this, you won't live to get 65. Well, what did you consider? This man wasn't afraid of the law. He marched into my home, take out my cousin, and wasn't afraid the law was going to happen. This must have been terrifying. You weren't 13 yet. No, 12 years old. Lying in bed in the middle of the night, two white men come in, one with a gun, and tells your cousin to get up and get dressed. Yes, sir. I was scared to death. Now, I wasn't afraid, but there was a sorrow that over the whole house. I feel like you could cut the grief in the house. Because after they left, no one said anything else. All I could hear my dad say was,
On August 31st, 1955, 3 days after he'd been abducted, Emmett Till's mangled body was found by a boy fishing in the waters of the Tallahatchie River not far from Money. His body had been weighted down by a 75-pound man attached to his neck by barbed wire. He'd been badly tortured. An eye was detached, an ear cut off, and he appears to have been shot in the head. His death was the birth of a powerful and lasting symbol of Southern racism in the 20th century. The local sheriff, H.C. Strider, a plantation owner and ardent segregation, tried to have the body buried immediately in this small cemetery in Money, Mississippi, hoping no one in the outside world would ever find out what happened to Emmett Till. But Emmett's mother, Mamie, battled with Mississippi authorities and was able to have her son's body returned to Chicago so she could identify him before she buried him. Mamie Till was determined never to let anyone forget the brutal way in which her son was killed. She described the chilling story in one of the final interviews she gave before her death last year at age 81.
I looked at the bridge of his nose, and it looked like someone had taken a meat chopper and chopped it. And I looked at his teeth. The life, I thought. And, I only saw two. Who bears the rest of them? This has been knocked out. And I was looking at his ears, and that's when I discovered a hole about here, and I could see daylight on the other side. I said, now, was this necessary to shoot it?
Some 50,000 people, nearly all of them black, turned out for Emmett Till's funeral in an enormous public display of grief and solidarity. Mamie Till ordered the funeral director to place her son in an open casket and permitted this shocking photograph of Emmett's corpse, which was published in Jet magazine and seen across the country. It ignited protests, civil disobedience, and backlash that would consume the South to the victory.
I said, I want the world to see this. Because when people saw what had happened to this little 14-year-old boy, they knew then that not only were men, black men, in danger, but black children as well.
The same day that Emmett Till was buried, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam were indicted on charges of kidnapping and murder. Their trial was held in the small Mississippi town of Sumner, billed as a good place to raise a boy. The star witness was Emmett Till's late great-uncle, Rose Wright, who bravely stood up in the courtroom and pointed his finger at Milam and Bryant as the ones who had come to his home and abducted Emmett Till at gunpoint. Another key witness was an 18-year-old sharecropper named Willie Reed, who said that on the morning after Emmett Till was abducted, he saw Emmett on a truck with 6 people: Roy Bryant, J.W. Milam, 2 other white men, and 2 black men who worked for Milam. Soon after, Reed said he saw the same truck parked in front of a barn managed at the time by Milam's brother, and heard the screams of a young boy he presumed was Emmett Till. Today at age 67, Reed says he still cannot get those sounds out of his mind.
I heard him screaming, and I said to myself, you know, man,
Oh, you could hear the word.
yes. You could.
According to Willie Reed and another witness, 4 white men came out of the barn, including Milam, who walked right up to Reed carrying a .45 caliber pistol.
Milam was coming out of the barn, so he asked them, listen, did you all hear anything? I said, no, I haven't heard anything.
Why would you say that? I mean, you had it. You heard screaming, you heard somebody TV.
Yeah, I saw that TV. But then you see Milam come home with, like I said, with khaki pants on and a green shirt and 45 on the side. Then he asked you, what you
didn't hear it? I didn't hear anything. You knew that's what he wanted to hear.
Right.
When they found the body, did you put 2 and 2 together and think that what you had heard going on in that barn, that was Emmett Till?
I'm sure. I was sure.
Fearing for his life after testifying against Milam and Bryant, Willie Reed was smuggled out of Mississippi. He went to Chicago, where he suffered a nervous breakdown and was hospitalized.
You're a good man. There's a lot of courage there. I think a lot of people who would have walked away from him wouldn't have said a word.
No, I couldn't walk away from that like that. Because he was 14. I've never been used to this life. And they come to get his grandpa. And they killed him. I mean, that's not right. I saw when they were picking, saw his body was like, and I knew. But I couldn't say no.
As the trial came to a close, attorneys for J.W. Milam and Roy Bryant warned the all-white jury that if they voted to convict, quote, your forefathers will turn over in their graves. It took the jury just an hour and 7 minutes to return a verdict of not guilty. One juror said it wouldn't have taken that long, but they stopped to take a soda pop break to make it look good. Milam and Bryant were congratulated by their many supporters and kissed their wives in celebration.
How do you folks feel now it's all over? Roy, how about you?
I'm just glad it's over.
4 months after the trial, knowing that double jeopardy protected them from being tried again, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam admitted to a reporter from Look magazine that they had in fact tortured and murdered Emmett. They were paid $4,000 for their story. In it, Milam said, "I just made up my mind. Chicago boy," I said, "I'm tired of them sending your kind down here to stir up trouble. Damn you, I'm going to make an example of you." Emmett Till's family has had to live with that for nearly 50 years. But as killers confess that nothing ever happened to them. Now, with a new government investigation underway, Cindy and I hope someone will finally be held accountable for the murder of his cousin.
J.W. Milam and Roy Bryant confessed that they killed Emmett. The people of the state of Mississippi said they did. We need to reconcile that statement, and we need to send a message to those who are committing crimes against blacks like this that we can get by with, we can get away. That justice eventually is going to find you.
When the U.S. Justice Department announced recently that it was opening a new investigation into the 1955 murder of 14-year-old Emmett Till, it said the case was a, quote, grotesque miscarriage of justice, and that it is examining evidence pointing to the possible involvement of more than a dozen people in the crime. Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam, who were tried and acquitted, are dead, but a number of others are still alive and could face criminal charges for their role in Emmett Till's abduction, beating, murder, and attempt to cover it up. The Justice Department says it is largely because of this young man that the case has been reopened. His name is Keith Bosha, amateur filmmaker from Louisiana. Like a lot of people in this country, he was moved by the shocking photograph of Emmett Till's corpse that he saw while looking through old magazines when he was just 10 years old. And ever since, Beauchamp has devoted much of his life to uncovering the truth about what happened to Emmett Till.
After seeing the photograph, was shocked tremendously. And when parents came in and sat me down and explained to me at the time the story of Emmett Till, and it hit me hard. It really hit me hard. I heard the same thing. I mean, I remember seeing this picture in that Jet magazine when I was a kid. And I think Emmett Till and I were probably not the same age in 1955, 14 years old. And growing up in Philadelphia, knew vaguely about the South. Like others, my parents had protected me from the reality of the South. When I saw that picture, I said, hey, that's when I got my first lesson about the South. Everyone had a story when they first saw that photograph. It stuck with me that how could this person be killed this way? A youth, it was like me. It was amazing to me that something like that could happen.
Keith Beauchamp told us that after reviewing thousands of old documents and talking to numerous witnesses with knowledge of the crime, he believes that at least 14 people may have been involved in the kidnapping and murder of Emmett Till, and that 5 of them are still alive.
You described much of this to the federal state investigators, and their reaction to that information, their reaction was overwhelming. They couldn't believe that a person this young would be so interested in finding out the truth. I guess they were really surprised that I did so much research on it.
So was Senator Charles Stewart, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which has oversight of the Justice Department. After meeting with Keith Beauchamp and his attorney Ken Thompson, and examining the research Beauchamp was gathering for a documentary film he was working on, Senator Schumer urged the department to reopen the Emmett Till case, saying it was never fully investigated 50 years ago.
How would you characterize the conduct of the federal law enforcement in 50 years? Well, federal law enforcement back then, and even many years later, reflected the attitude of America. Oh, these things happen. This is how it is then. It is a state, it will be a state, on both the Mississippi law enforcement officials and the United States federal
urging that justice be meted out to all persons involved in the beastly lynching of her son. In spite of FBI records and news reports at the time citing specific individuals, President Eisenhower didn't take any action. Emmett Till's mother died before the government reopened the case this past spring. A case based largely on the research of Keith Beauchamp. Among his discoveries was Henry Lee Lyons, now 81 years old and living in Ohio. At the time of the murder, Loggins was working for J.W. Myers. FBI files from 1955 refer to witnesses who claim they saw Loggins on the truck with Emmett Till after he was abducted. One respected black newspaper at the time even reported that Loggins allegedly held Emmett Till down as Milam and Bryant tortured him. Loggins was also reportedly ordered by them to attach the fan from a cotton gin around Till's neck just before tossing him into the Tallahatchie River. Henry Lee Loggins is now under investigation by the Justice Department. When we talked to him recently, he denied the allegations that a dog hit for half a century.
I wouldn't say you tell a lot. I wouldn't even think I installed that. How do you think your name came out? I mean, not just in newspaper articles, but also with the FBI. Why do people say Henry Lee Loggins? I can't figure that out. I can't figure that out to the day. Henry Lee, how do you explain all these stories that just won't go away? You were there on the back of the truck. Put that with you. That you participated in the abduction, the kidnapping, and the murder. So put that with you. That you tossed his body in the river. Put that with you. What you mean? Yeah, yeah. Listen, I was saying until you know what. I don't know nothing about that too. What are you going to do when the FBI comes? I'll tell them something. And that's been too long.
5 other black men, now dead, have also been implicated in some way in the abduction and murder of Emmett Till. If any of the allegations are true, the question is why?
Knowing now that black men could possibly be involved, I just keep thinking, about what could have been going through Emmett Till's mind, state. And how do you explain that? Well, they were turned on one of their own. We believe that they were forced to participate in the car. It was going to either be them or Emmett Till. It was shocking at first because for so long you heard, white men were involved, and that's what that was it. A white and black man. You can felt like, you're amazed.
It seems clear that black men were involved. Emmett Till's late great-uncle Mose Wright said there was a black man on the porch when J.W. Milam and Roy Bryant came to take Emmett Till. He also said he heard a woman's voice that night coming from a truck parked outside. He believed it was Roy Bryant's wife, Carol, the woman Emmett Till had whistled at several days earlier inside her husband's grocery store in Money, Mississippi. Mose Wright's son, Simeon, Emmett's cousin, said his father told him the same thing.
Oh, yes, there was another man standing on the porch. My dad talked about it. There was another person in the truck because when they marched Emmett out to the truck, and they asked the person inside the truck, is this the one? My dad, they heard a woman's voice identifying Emmett as the boy that did it. So that must have been Brian's wife. At that time, we believed it was Brian's wife, and after 48 some odd years, that nothing has arisen to dispel that belief.
Apparently, the local authorities back then believed it too, and according to FBI communiques, issued an arrest warrant for Carolyn Bryant on suspicion of kidnapping, but she was never arrested or charged. Today, we've learned that Carolyn Bryant is the focus of the Justice Department's new investigation, suspected of having assisted our husband Roy and J.W. Milam in the abduction of Emmett Till. She was divorced in 1979 and has since remarried and moved several times. She had almost disappeared from public view until we found her, now age 70, and known as Carolyn Dunham, living in Greenville, Mississippi. While our cameraman was able to take these pictures of her, when I went to her house, she was answered the door. We tried to talk to him.
Can we talk to Mr. Dunn? Can you talk to me? Can I call you guys to come out? No. I have some questions I'd like to ask you about Emmett too. Sorry, what you doing? Won't you come out and talk to him? I have to see you. Tell me again. No. You won't. No. You're back. I'm back. Goodbye. Goodbye. You leaving? I'm going.
We called the house later in the day, and neither Frank Bryant nor his mother Carolyn would discuss the Emmett case any further. We've learned that the Justice Department could complete its investigation within a year, and criminal charges against at least 5 people could follow. But the Justice Department and the FBI declined to comment.
What would justice be? In my opinion, there ought to be a full trial. And if there are convictions, even though the people are old who did it, they ought to go to jail.
While that may finally bring a measure of justice to the family of Emmett Till, it also brings back the pain.
These members are still sharp after that. Oh, yeah.
I know, no way. I'm still saying, how could that happen? Why would anyone hate anyone to beat him, to kill him, and to torture him like that? How can a human being do that to another? All because of this.
I hope y'all enjoyed that. I hope y'all enjoyed that. You were the girl that decided. If you did, you were the girl